A few months ago, a friend of mine told me she was going on a retreat and she said, you should really come along. And I said, that's a great idea. Yes. But then after thinking about it, I talked myself out of it and I was like, nope, it's not right. So I'll be leaving this Friday for 3 weeks. You're probably like, wait, but you said you weren't going on the retreat. That's right. I decided it wasn't right for me, so I created my own. And that got me thinking that writing retreats are really important, whether you're going on one that's organized or creating one yourself. But so many times people don't know how to pick the right one. They don't know what to do to maximize the benefit of one. And they don't also know how to create a writing retreat at home. If you've ever tried to do a staycation and it turned into you doing household chores and wasting more time doing laundry than resetting, you probably know what I'm talking about. So in this episode, let's talk about writing retreats, the pros and cons, how to pick a good one, how to create a writing retreat at home, and what the difference is between a writing retreat and a writing conference. Because I'm going to be gone for about 3 weeks, and when I'm back, I hope that you're as refreshed as I hope to be. And with this little blueprint that I'm going to be giving you on this episode of the podcast, I think it's all possible. So let's dive right in to how to do a writing retreat or choose a writing retreat. And I'll tell you more about what happened with my whole story arc of will she, won't she, oh, she didn't, and now she is. If you're a writer dreaming of becoming a successful author, join me, writing coach Karena Akhavein, on the How to Be an Author podcast, your weekly source for writing information, inspiration, and motivation. Hello, and welcome back to the How to Be an Author podcast. I am your host, writing coach Karena Akhavein, PhD, and I may have a PhD in literature, but I like to keep it simple when it comes to helping you to move forward in your writing career, whether that's writing skills, writing mindset, or the business of writing. And today we're going to be talking about writers' retreats. And that is something that can really help you with your skills, but also it can help you with your mindset and it can help you to move forward in your writing career or not. So let's rewind just a minute and talk about what went down with this whole retreat story. Just a couple months ago, a friend of mine invited me to join her at a retreat. This retreat is in Croatia. It's got this beautiful location, great food, yoga, all this stuff. And I thought to myself, you know what? I only too often say no to things. I think that characters in our books is nice if sometimes they say yes to things, but realistically, as human beings with priorities, many times we are forced to say no. I have to say no to things like some type of travel, some types of events, some types of, watching a TV series. I don't have time to do that because my priorities are on my writing so much of the time. But I knew that I needed to shake it up and I knew I needed a little bit of time away. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to say yes to this retreat. But then I started thinking again. And I was talking to another friend and she told me that she was going on a retreat. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, well, maybe that's my sign, right? Everyone's going on these retreats. And my friend was positively glowing. She was so excited. She's like, oh my God, I cannot wait. This retreat is going to be amazing. I'm so excited for it. It's, the location, what we're going to be doing. And I looked at her and I thought to myself, I'm not glowing like that. I'm not enthusiastic like that. And now maybe that's because I'm a negative person, but I don't think it is. I think it's because that retreat that I had pretty much said yes to, that wasn't the right one for me. So I sat there in front of my computer and it was supposed to be time to pay for this also very expensive retreat. And I just looked at it and and I picked up the phone and I called my friend and I said, this retreat is not right for me. I think I'm going to pass. And I was pretty disappointed in myself. But then I thought, you know what? That first instinct to say yes, I needed a getaway. I needed something like that, but that particular retreat wasn't right for me. So what that did is it set me on this path of creating a retreat for myself. So I am going on a trip and we're going to be taking a 1-month break from this podcast. So if you're listening to this episode, take this opportunity to go back and listen to a few episodes you might have missed, and I'll see you again in a month after going on this self-designed writing retreat. But I'm not leaving you high and dry. I think today in this episode, it would be great for us to talk about this idea of writing retreats. Are they good? Do they help? Should you go on one? How do you get the most out of one? What's the difference between a writing retreat and a writer's conference? Because people sometimes get confused by those. What are the pros and cons? How can you make it something that's really as positive as possible? And also, if the cost of the retreat is one of the absolute detractors for you, that's totally fair. That was a big thing for me. I was looking at the cost of this and going, what? And also, there's some retreats that don't work around your productivity or whatever. How do you create a writing retreat at your home or in your area? How do you do a kind of writing staycation that doesn't fall prey to the sorts of things that kind of ruin staycations sometimes? You know how it is. You're like, I'm going to do a staycation, and then you just do all the same stuff you do all the time. We don't want that. So let's talk about writing retreats, whether you're going on one or creating one in your own backyard. Here's how to get the most out of it, whether you're a beginning writer or an experienced writer trying to wrap up a story or whatever you might be trying to do. Let's talk writing retreats. So let's talk about the pros and cons. I think the pros that people think about are, wow, I'll have focused time for creativity. I'm going to be held accountable because there's going to be somebody there who's going to be helping me with my writing and other writers. There's going to be networking. I'm going to be working on my skills. I'm going to have uninterrupted writing time and inspiration from fellow writers, a change of scenery. What could possibly go wrong? Well, it could be super expensive. You could actually have a lot of distractions because you're in a cool spot. And you could have varying levels of productivity depending on your individual preferences and goals. And also, what about the instructor? What if you don't love them? What if the other writers are not in your genre and you don't really get each other? I mean, things could turn from dream to nightmare pretty quickly, depending on which retreat you choose. So I think you have to be really, really careful about which retreat you decide to go on, because not all writing retreats are created equal. So there are some factors to evaluate. The first one is location. Like, where is this thing going to be held? Is it someplace you've always wanted to go? Well, that's lovely, but what if that means that you feel like being a tourist instead of buckling down and writing, right? That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? If your writing retreat is in Bali, I mean, I can't imagine that I wouldn't want to go explore all these temples and beaches and go do some yoga and do all these things. I'm not going to be spending as much time as I thought writing. Now, how long does this writing retreat take? The duration's really important because sometimes if they're too short, I feel like it's not life-changing enough. I feel like you barely get into the swing of things and you're not making new types of schedules, you're not making new routines, and you're not going to be having the time to really plunge into it, and you're not going to be seeing the result. However, if the retreat's too long, then you feel like, ooh, this might be getting kind of old, and I can't take that much time off of my regular schedule. So also, I think that you might be wanting to think about the cost, because yes, it's great to invest in your writing career, but you know what? Publishing a book, whether you're self-publishing or whether you're trying to get something polished up to present to an agent for conventional publishing, all of these things do cost money, and you want to have that budget held aside for things like cover design, editing, writing coaches, formatting, whatever it might be that you want to pay for. And even things like writer events. I'm actually holding a book signing and writing event in my hometown in about a month. I'm like super excited, but super stressed, but those things cost money. And so is the money you're going to spend on your writing retreat, is it worth it? Is this something that's going to double as a vacation and as professional development? I think that's so important because really when I was looking at this retreat that I ended up turning down, the cost just seemed too high proportional to what I was going to get out of it. And I think that maybe the trip that I have organized for myself, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that, but I think that that might end up being about the same price, but it's also going to last 3 times longer. And it's also going to enable me to see friends and things like that. So I really feel like you need to look at the cost pretty objectively and not throw yourself in and say, oh, I'm finally investing in my writing career. Like, that's great to invest the time and the money, but maybe not for that. Also ask yourself, what's the structure of this writing retreat that I'm looking at? Because some writing retreats are all kind of free time where you've got common meals, you've got some discussion and stuff, but other than that, you're pretty much on your own, writing in a cabin or by a lake or something. Okay, that's nice. Some people love that. But some people would rather have something more structured, like lots of workshops, one-on-one sessions, things like that, right? Who are the facilitators in this retreat? Who's throwing it? Do you have a choice of having lots of different facilitators, or is it one writing instructor or coach who's running the whole thing? Now, depending on what you're looking for, either response is fine. I participated in a writing retreat where I was zooming in to talk to the participants, and the writing retreat was organized by another publishing coach. And that was fine because that meant that these people attending this retreat got lots of different points of view. I kind of like that. I don't like the idea of being too super stuck in a place that I can't really get out of with the handful of writers that I can't get away from, and then the facilitator who maybe wasn't what I was expecting. That's kind of hard. It's great when you actually know who you are going to be taught by. That's important. And also, what's the retreat's focus? I've seen a lot of kind of genre-specific retreats, like children's book retreats or romance writing retreats, things like that, or general writing or memoir versus, fiction. And I think it's really important to have a retreat where you have like-minded people. If you end up in a retreat where the writers are completely diametrically opposed from you, both in their lifestyle, morals, literary style, it's not really going to help you to be surrounded by writers. Like, maybe these are cool people, but does it align with you, your needs, and your writing style? Maybe not. Right? So definitely be super realistic. There are so many writing retreats out there, tons of different online sources for writing retreats. And I think that you need to ask yourself what you're really looking for, because believe me, you will be able to find one that corresponds to your goals. Now, once you've chosen your writing retreat, if indeed you have chosen a writing retreat, or if you're planning on, making your own writing retreats, there are certain things that you really should do to prepare, because a writing retreat is not just about the time that you spend there. There's also the before and there's also the after. There's preparation. So before you do this, you want to set clear goals. It is really important to define what you want to achieve during the retreat. Is it just brainstorming ideas? Is it completing a draft? Is it networking with other authors and just getting confidence about being a writer? There are a million different things. There's no one right answer, but it is crucial to have a goal or goals, not too many of them, something attainable, and so that you can look back and be like, okay, I achieved this. Another thing that you want to do is that you definitely want to do a little bit more planning when it comes to your project itself. So if you are indeed working on a specific project in the retreat, you might want to do an outline, right? You might want to be working on plot points or character development, or you might be thinking to yourself, okay, you know what? I'm going to use this retreat to do research. Well, in that case, you better make sure that this isn't one of those retreats where there is no Wi-Fi. That would be a nightmare if you are researching, but it could be a gift if you are plotting and need zero distractions. Now, think about what you need, whether you're going somewhere or whether you're staying put. You have some necessary writing tools that I want you to have on hand all around you, because you don't want to spend part of your writing retreat gathering the tools. So I'm talking just easy things, right? Laptop, notebook, pens, reference materials, music, snacks, whatever it is that you use to write. And if they're working for you, in any case, you want to have those essentials on hand before the retreat starts. Now, if you're going somewhere, this is something that you should do probably before you even say yes to it, but you should definitely research the location. You want to familiarize yourself with the retreat venue. What are the local amenities? What are some potential distractions? You want to mitigate any surprises that you might have. As I was saying, like kind of touring around and discovering the spot, while fun, doesn't really feed what you were trying to achieve with this retreat, I don't think. But definitely remember that you've got to manage your expectations because productivity levels, they might vary. You might be ready to go and raring to go and exciting, but you're not actually feeling like you are very productive at that point. And that's okay too. Just remember to embrace the opportunity for growth, learning, and creative exploration. I'm going to be talking about some of the things that you can and should do during a retreat that maybe you don't have the time or energy to do in normal periods of your life. So definitely manage those expectations. But remember that just because the retreat doesn't go the way you thought it might, doesn't mean that it can't be super, super helpful. You want to be organized in your life, like kind of wrap up those loose ends before you go or before you start. You want to set up auto replies for your emails. You want to notify contacts of your absence. You want to tell your podcast listeners that you're going to be gone for a while. All of those good things, because if you have your mind all wrapped up in that stuff while you're at the retreat, that's not going to be super helpful for your creativity. Also, kind of mentally prepare. I want you to go into this realizing that this is a special gift that you are giving your creative self. So, I know it sounds a little woo-woo, but after clearing your mind and your calendar of distractions, set intentions for this retreat. You want to approach it with this open and focused mindset. That is really crucial because this is an investment. Whether it's costing you a lot or not, you're setting aside the time and the energy. You're using this time that you could be using to spend with your family or friends or, doing something super fun or crossing something off your bucket list. And so this is really a gift to yourself and you want to be completely ready for it so that you give it the impact that it deserves. Now, there are alternatives to just a full-blown writing retreat somewhere else, okay? And that's something to definitely consider in case you're feeling all guilty and bad that, oh, I can't afford a full-on writing retreat right now, or I just don't have enough time. You can do that personal writing retreat. You can do it at home, or you can rent a cabin to do kind of just a writing for 2 days, 3 days, whatever, because that can really help to get that critical mass of words on paper so that you feel that you at least have something behind you. You at least have something you can edit on the page and you're not feeling like you have this enormity of blankness in front of you. But be careful when you decide to rent a cabin or something. I had a friend who did this, but she decided to go to a cabin in England. It took her forever to get there. It was super expensive. By the time she got there, she was exhausted, jet lag. Then she realized the nearest supermarket was about an hour and a half away. And then, wouldn't you know it, obviously she started feeling really isolated and kind of weird about it. And so she ended up spending most of those few days in a pub. And I'm like, okay, that sounds like a fun trip, kind of, but you didn't get the writing done. And so really figure out what can you do where your focus is there and where this is really about the writing and not just about getting away. And it's fine to just want to get away, but, see it for what it is. You can also join a writing group or a workshop. There are local or online writing groups, maybe at your local library or maybe, anywhere by Zoom. And writers are meeting regularly to share feedback, set goals, and provide accountability. If you're thinking of going to a writing retreat, but it's kind of far out, I would highly recommend doing something like this first to make sure that you are ready to kind of, critique and be critiqued without freaking out. And also that you're the kind of writer who actually likes the kind of feedback you would get from other writers and that you need the accountability that you get from other writers. Because some of my writers that I have as a writing coach, some of my clients, they actually find out about themselves that they're feeling a little bit sensitive about feedback at certain stages in their writing. So being in that group setting actually hurts instead of helps. There are also writer residencies or fellowships, and this is kind of cool. You get community, you get mentorship, and also oftentimes, since you've applied, you don't have to pay for it. Now, there might be some other things that you're expected to do, but some of these have really interesting locations and lots of intellectual people around, and it's just a really nice way of doing something kind of on the cheap, but high level. And also, I think that applying to these things actually really helps you in the business of writing because you start to see what kind of writer you are. What are you supposed to be promoting about yourself? How do I convince somebody that my work is important? I think all of those things are super useful to start to work on. There are other things like online writing challenges. There's like NaNoWriMo, but there are other things like that that you could be participating in. Or you could be saying, you know what? I'm going to hire my writing coach and do an intensive thing where I do my own at-home retreat, but every day for an hour, I do feedback with my writing coach. I'm here for you. If that's something that you want to do, you're going to end up paying less than you would for the travel and everything else, and you'll get that one-on-one time and accountability. That can be really useful. You can also do my course from idea to published in 6 months, and you can say to me, well, okay, instead of doing a weekly stint of office hours with you, I want to actually do a more concentrated thing of office hours and just give up a couple of your weeks and start to put those together so that we can talk for a longer time. That can work too. I can work with you to make your writing dreams come true. And then, of course, there is another thing, which is writing conferences, right? Writing conferences are that alternative to a writing retreat. Many people confuse the two, but what's the difference between a writing conference and a writing retreat? Well, the differences lie in their focus, structure, and purpose. A writing conference primarily focuses on education, yes, but networking and professional development within the writing industry. So you're going to have all these workshops, panels, keynote speakers, and opportunities to pitch to agents or editors. A writing retreat emphasizes much more the time and space for writing, the creativity, and the personal growth. Retreats often offer solitude or communal settings, but you've got minimal distractions. That's kind of the difference. A writing conference, if you're an introvert, can feel a little bit overwhelming, but it can also be a stretch that helps you to get out of your shell. Now, in terms of the structure, a writing conference typically follows a structured schedule with organized sessions, breaks, and networking events over a few days. And you can choose which activities you are participating in. And this is really good. You can enhance your writing skills or focus on industry knowledge or do a little bit of everything. That's fine. When it comes to writing retreats, they have this structure that sometimes is more flexible. And you might have optional workshops, you might have group discussions, individual consultations, but the main focus is on that writing time. So if that's not what you're looking for at this stage, maybe a conference is right for you, and you can choose one that takes you away and gets you, on a kind of vacation-y vibe. Some conferences are in Hawaii, they're in Europe, they're wherever. But, keep in mind, what are the costs and what are the benefits? A writing conference, kind of when you come away from it, you should feel inspired and more connected, I feel. You're going to feel like you have kind of improved your craft maybe, but you've advanced your writing career by talking to the people who are most likely to do that for you. Whereas the writing retreat, I think that you come away from that feeling like you have grown personally. You've been able to be immersed in your writing process, and hopefully you feel recharged. So both of these things can offer absolutely valuable opportunities for writers, but they do cater to different needs and preferences. So definitely think about that. Now, let's talk about that staycation writing retreat. I'm serious. You have to take it seriously. You can't just loosey-goosey go, oh, well, I don't have anything on my calendar tomorrow. I'm going to call it a writing retreat staycation. Like maybe if you're super organized, yes, but I really feel like you should select some specific dates for the retreat. Block off that time on your calendar, and you are going to set it super clear like it's a vacation away. You are doing that same goal setting I was talking about, right? Setting your clear writing goals, or which project are you focusing on? What are we going to do? Create a schedule for yourself. And that means just because you're at home doesn't mean that you're not going to be having a special meal. This is a staycation. Remember, you're going to allocate time for relaxation, self-care activities. So, maybe instead of sitting by that lake, maybe you take yourself to the local beach or go for a forest walk. Do things you don't usually do. So, I was hearing about forest bathing the other day and how good it is for you to be grounded. I thought to myself, wow, if I was doing a staycation, writing retreat, I would go to my local forest and I would do like a barefoot walk, for example. That's something so different that you don't usually do. And I think it would be a really cool thing. Or maybe if you never go ocean swimming, try that. Or maybe if there's, maybe a pottery workshop or something that you've always wanted to do, make that part of that creative retreat that you've created in your hometown. That's awesome. Or go get a pedicure, and do a special color that means something to your character. So make it special. Even these activities, even if you're going, out for dinner in your area, go someplace you've never been. Go pretend you're in Paris, sit in a corner and listen to strangers' conversations, do those sorts of things. Now, if you're doing your staycation, I want you to designate writing spaces within your home, inside, outside, cozy spots with natural light or something in your home library, quiet corner, whatever. Remember that those writing supplies I was talking about, you need those. Eliminate the distractions. Plan the inspirational activities and definitely set boundaries. Your friends and family might have a hard time understanding this, but you're like, no, I'm on vacation. I am on my writing retreat. You cannot keep interrupting me. Remember that when you're doing this staycation, procrastination happens because you're at home. Distractions happen, right? Household chores. I'm saying do not do that. Turn off the social media notifications, get a dog sitter, and do not do the laundry. Okay. Don't push yourself beyond your limits just because you're at home. And, you don't need to isolate yourself completely either, right? Because if you were on a retreat somewhere else, you would have fellow writers around. So why don't you stay connected a little bit, but make sure that the people you're connected to are the ones who are going to push your writing forward. And then definitely make sure that you have that structure, because too many people, when they're like, I'm doing a staycation, they end up just having this unstructured time and they come away from it thinking, what did I get from that? Maybe a little bit of boredom. That's about it. So that's not cool. So during a writing retreat, authors have the luxury of dedicated time and space to explore their creativity. There's some things that you might never have time to do when you're doing your writing on a regular basis. You're kind of just action and result oriented, but you don't give yourself time to do things that can really help your writing. Things like stream of consciousness writing, or writing prompts, or character development exercises, or exploring settings, or practicing dialogue, or plotting and structure exercises, genre experimentation, collaborative writing. All of these things are things that I can help you to find those exercises. They're part of my writing workbook that comes with the course From Idea to Publish in 6 months. So if you're doing that writing retreat, it's done for you in the course. You have all of these exercises that you could be doing, and that's very, very helpful. And then, of course, you've got the non-writing things that I talked about, right? The forest bathing, the visual arts exploration in your town, mindfulness, meditation, reading, creative hobbies, that pottery I was talking about, or maybe photography, self-reflection, journaling. All of those things really fit in well to a writing retreat. And talking about journaling, this is the final important thing to think about, is that after your retreat, I want you to spend some time reflecting on what you gained from it. What was the result? How did you change? What are you going to do from now on? That's really important. There is a before, during, and after when you're doing a writing retreat. So I think that's really, really crucial. We'll talk more about that when I come back from my trip. So you might be curious, what am I doing on my trip? Instead of doing this kind of yoga, food, and creativity workshop I was going to do in Croatia, I decided, what did I want? I wanted some solitude. I wanted some inspirational walking. I wanted a little bit of socializing, but a lot of solitude. And I wanted to go swimming. And I wanted to discover a place I had not been. So I'm taking myself all around. I'm going to France to a friend's house. She's got this chateau. Sounds very romantic, doesn't it? And it's going to be boring. That's the great part. I'm going to be there for like 5 days with little activities planned, but also during the day, lots of uninterrupted creative time. Then I've got 2 days in Paris by myself. right? That's a creative date. I'm going to walk through the streets. I'm going to sit in cafes, and I'm staying in a hotel where a lot of writers stayed. So I think that's really fun. I'm planning on getting a lot done, but also doing a lot of exploring. And then I'm going to Spain, where I'm going to go swimming and meet a friend, and we're going to go do a lot of art stuff. So this is kind of a research trip, and, also some creative time alone, swimming, which I wanted to do, and the art stuff, which I think is going to be really fun. And then I'm taking my son to Istanbul, and we are parking it for a week, and we're staying in the same place. I'm not going to be running all around. We're just going to be in depth exploring neighborhoods. And I think this is going to help me to play with the idea of looking at all the texture and senses that go into an immersive setting. And so I'm really excited about that. So I will give you my feedback as to how that went after I come back from my trip. And in the meantime, I hope you got inspired to create a writing retreat of your own, or to research writing retreats that you could be going on. And let me know how that turns out. And if you decide to make your own writing retreat out of the From Idea to Publish in 6 Months course, along with that one-on-one coaching, yes, reach out to me. Get onto my website, creativeandwritingcoach.com, and let me know you want to do that, and we will make it happen. I can't wait to hear what your writing retreat sounds like. Looking forward to being with you next time on the How to Be an Author podcast. If you have any pressing writing-related questions or would like to be featured on the How to Be an Author podcast, please feel free to reach out on my website, creativeandwritingcoach.com.